This is your host, Liam Xmel. You can find my work on Liam Xmel on X, also known as Twitter. My moniker is found at Liam XXX Mail. Liam XXX Mail. This is part 2 to the reading of The Secret World Government or The Hidden Hand, The Unrevealed in History. 100 Historical Mysteries Explained. From the Anti-Bolshevist Publishing Association at 15 East 128th Street, New York City, published in 1926 by Major General Count Cherep Spiridovich. My efforts to prevent an Anglo-American clash, however, in the same financial news on November 12th and 25th on December 35th, 1919, and February 17th, 1920, appeared my vigorous letters entitled How to Save England. In the last letter, I offered 20 remedies and preventions, some of which were adopted. My fourth and last message ended with the words, in my next letter, I shall explain the science of foreseeing, indispensable, also for all financiers and merchants, and how to pay all England's 8,000 million pounds sterling of debts without increasing taxes, without levies on capital, and without spending a penny from her treasury. This was too much for the hidden hand, which wishes to bend down England until she will consent to attack the United States. That is why my fifth letter has never been published and disappeared in the office of the Financial News, whose famous editor, Sir Ellis Powell, was suddenly dismissed and suddenly died. And now we see England in the terrific position which I foretold to her and from which I sought to rescue her. I warned nearly all the officials of England, beginning with Mr. Lloyd George and his colleagues in 1919 about the situation in which she now finds herself. But he was a mere tool of the hidden hand, and even according to Mr. John Spargo, the Independent of New York, April 9, 1921, he was following the policy of Disraeli, viz., Rothschilds. Only once, when he lost his majority in the House of Commons, did he obey my advice to declare that England will pay her debts in 30 or 40 years, without increasing taxes, without levies on capital, and without spending a penny from her treasury, which I suggested in my letters to him and to the Financial News. This declaration of Mr. Lloyd George produced a sensation in the House of Commons. He received a majority of some 350 votes and maintained his power for many months. But his secretary, Sir Philip Sassoon Rothschild, who was cornacking Mr. Lloyd George, forbade him to execute my plans of salvation. And we now see the results. Many Americans rely upon a tacit Anglo-American secret alliance, but it can be dismissed under the heavy pressure of the hidden hand, which I repeat is purposely crushing England's finances and commerce until England will accept the motto, to go to the dogs or to assault and plunder the United States. No other way out will be left to the splendid islanders. And an Anglo-American war will be the end of the so-called Christian civilization, which ignores Christ. The hidden hand influenced the proud Britishers to rebuke me, saying, England goes very well and needs not to be saved, but facts prove that I was right. New York Times, April 8th, 1925. Foreign and domestic dangers unchecked. There are more Bolsheviks here than there are in Russia. Henry Ford. Nobody here seriously fights Bolshevism, i.e., Judeo-Mongolism. 2,000 agitators between Chicago and the Rocky Mountains are preaching a gospel which will wreck the United States Constitution unless intelligent citizens talk a constructive doctrine to overcome the tragical influences. Organized laborers programs is nationalism of all basic industries, as you will observe from the conduct of the present strikes. There are not strikes for money, but are steps toward government ownership and operation of industry. John B. Mailing, The Chicago Journal of Commerce, July 21st, 1922. The Jews have always formed a rebellious element in every state, and not more in those where they were persecuted than in those where they were allowed to dwell at peace. Miss Nesta Webster, World Revolution, page 163. These agitators are hired by the hidden hand, Gompers said. Nobody dares to reveal it and warn the workers and youth. Our people don't understand these things, awful dangers. The people do not understand the situation. Admiral Sims, New York Times, February 28, 1925. Very few understand the possibility of a foreign assault. The American Navy is prepared to lose the next war. Our fleet, as it now exists, cannot defend itself against modern naval forces. Admiral W. F. Fulham, The New York American, March 4, 1925. We have no air force. Without a dominating air force, our armies and navies are merely organized for defeat in modern war. Colonel W. Mitchell, June 3, 1925. Why such appalling blindness on the eve of disaster? History, a true, not bunk, is the best philosophy, says Napoleon. The absence of an history with conscience, as is my unrevealed in history, produce lamentable results everywhere. The Washington conferences may be the last failure to stave off the disasters and destruction that gathers about our race. H.G. Wells. Japan prepares for war, but the U.S. does not. Admiral B. A. Fisk. There will be a war in 1925. There will be no declaration of war. It will start by a sudden aerial attack. General Branker, ex-chief of Air Forces. Serious differences are brewing with England over shipping and other policies. These differences can be prevented from developing into a conflict only by a strong navy. England is resentful over the new status of the United States as world power and over the fact that they no longer pay $300 million a year to her merchantmen for transoceanic transportation. Admiral W. W. Phelps, March 3, 1925. Britain and America are calmly preparing industrially, politically, and militarily for the coming war. McLean in the coming war with America. The war between England and America has commenced. Senator P.C. Knox. The message of this book could alone avert such fratricide. The danger is within America as well. Such was the warning of the immortal Abraham Lincoln, recently repeated by Secretary C.E. Hughes. The hidden hand can in due time start a tumult between the Protestants and the Catholics, tenfold increasing the Heron fightings, when the general strike would be fomented, and at the same moment it will order its agents to create a financial panic, as R. F. Pettigrew foretold, which would cause confusion and a chaos. Here, the hidden hand is Anglo-Saxonizing this country instead of Americanizing it, and this may disrupt the United States as foreseen by the Brooklyn Eagle in May 1921. The hidden hand, according to the declaration of Paul Warburg to the Senate, covertly financed simultaneously the elections of Mr. Roosevelt, Mr. Taft, and Mr. Wilson. The hidden hand can help to envenom the Democratic-Republican duel in 1928, support a third party, and finance the Blue Laws in order to increase the discontent and to breed revolution to the utmost. America is a land of bondage. The people will soon revolt against the efforts of moralists. Rabbi A. Spitzer of New York on July 18, 1921. He knows his Jews well, and there are at least 5 million Judeo-Mongols in America and 3 or 4 million more of secret or crypto Jews, as Disraeli called them. The Jew never was a real, true American. In this war, the central powers were financed by the Jews with money from America, and this money was used to fight against our own homeland. The Reverend J.D. Brous, pastor of the Great Episcopal Church, the Jewish World, July 13, 1921. If 10,000 American Jews would go to Palestine, she would be revolutionized. Ex-Minister Sir Alfred Mann, a Jewish Chronicle, November 9, 1924. The Jews are so successfully making America red that hardly any of them are willing to go to Bolshevize Palestine. As the 12 million Negroes here are incited by the agents of the hidden hand, they will be ready to help the 8 million Asiatics here, the Judeo-Mongols, to start any revolt. The newspaper of the colored people, The Messenger, wrote, September 1921. This country has 300 billion in wealth, with human beings existing on cornmeal, while 2% of the people own 60% of the wealth. The blacks in the United States are are to look to Bolshevism for deliverance. The editor of the Defender of Chicago in March 1924. Say only 2 million men are unemployed, but 5 million souls are suffering and urging a change. The German Americans are also dissatisfied. Any pretext created by the hidden hand, which is intoxicating the masses with a poisonous moonshine, can provoke a riot, which the agents of the hidden hand will transform into plunder and murder. All the 120,000 men in jails will be released, as was done in Russia and in France at every revolt. The war without declaration of war. The beginning of all may be any strike, which will be fanned by the hidden hand into a general strike, followed by all the above-mentioned conflicts and a circular foreign attack. Many persons are fooled by the famous ratio of 5-3, as the American fleet is supposed to be superior to that of Japan, but nobody takes into consideration that an unexpected night attack by the Japanese could easily reverse this ratio. The Women's Peace Conference at Washington in January 1925 enumerated 24 reasons which are provoking wars. They forgot the main, the devil's lust of murder, of the Jews. Of course, they work in great secrecy. However, we perceive them from time to time. Thus we read in the New York American Geneva Protocol, a direct menace to America threatens war if we don't obey superstate. Professor Philip Marshall Brown, October 19, 1924. The realization of this protocol was postponed, but the good intention remains. But let us remain to the eventual assault. When the squadrons of foes are facing American ports and their airships hovering above New York, Chicago, Washington, and other towns, then an ultimatum will be issued. Consent to pay $100 billion in cash, bonds, or shares, and surrender the remaining ships and airships. Otherwise, your harbors and plants will be blown up, towns poisoned, and the Capitol and White House destroyed. General W. Mitchell, the Assistant Chief of American Air Forces, rightly stated that one bomb can annihilate a whole town. War between the United States and Japan is quite inevitable. General Bernhardi. Japan's Foreign Minister, Kei Mutsuyi, speaks with an irration which this country cannot afford to ignore. Chicago Tribune, February 9, 1924. War between the United States and England is imminent before 1926, confessed Trotsky, the Jew ex-dictator of Russia, who received directions from the Jew dictator of Germany, the late W. Rathenau, as the latter confessed. Plain English, June 11, 1921. In 1925, in Japan, 17 divisions and naval aviation will be ready, telegraphed Mr. Perriell from Tokyo. Defenseless is America. Such is the title of Mr. Hudson Maxim's book. Yes, she is defenseless and facing certain disaster, unless she will regard the Jews as described by Christ. If the American fleets only were sunk or seized and plants blown up, all the expenses of an attack would be covered tenfold, and the United States weakened for many years and even open to a Judeo-Japano-Mexican-Mongol overt mass invasion. Mexico gives Russia a good base to develop further contact with America. Chicherin, the Soviet Foreign Minister, New York Times, March 6, 1925. As a consequence of finding a good base in Mexico, a revolution in Mexico impending, New York Herald, June 13, 1925, and also a cloud has appeared on the horizon of Mexican-American relations, from New York Times, June 15, 1925. Prevent the education of incurable imbeciles. Every Jew or his hireling who disdains Christ, as the rationalists founded by a Jew Spinoza are doing, is helped by the hidden hand here, but truth about it strictly is forbidden. Churchmen, professors, writers, and politicians hide the truth or ignore it, and thus foster incurable imbeciles. The thousands of authors who have written the history of the last 150 years seem to be blind and to be nothing but reporters in gran. They never go to the roots, but just glance at the surface and then offer their dead pictures without conscience. Why are they doing it? Because they have been bribed or for fear of the Jews, as St. John 7:13 and also Cicero mentioned, or because of their ignorance. In either case, the result is the same. The reader obtains quite a false view of history and politics and become mere politicians, even real incurable imbeciles. By saying bribed, I do not mean that thousands of authors received money, positions, or publicity for their harmful writings. Contemplating the mountains of gold on which the Rothschilds are seated, these authors, politicians, preachers, professors, involuntarily felt their mouths watered. Most of them practically sold themselves to Satan and to the Jews, inspired by him and led by the Rothschilds, but were never compensated. The notorious Otto Kahn, partner in every sense of the Anglo-German American bankers, who, according to Mr. S. Gompers, wished to drown his country in an ocean of blood, also partner of the Wahlbergs mentioned by the British Guardian in the article Warburg's International Crooks, proves how right Christ is. Otto Kahn gave a tip of $25,000 to one clergyman. Then some 100,000 other clergymen began to think, if Reverend so-and-so received $25,000, why could I not have the same reward if I would never denounce the Jewish crimes? And the 100,000 clergymen became pro-Jewish. The sympathy of each of them cost but 25 cents, cheap. The Jew has persistently shown himself ungrateful, and Webster. The negative opinion of the famous Thomas Edison about the defects of the American Constitution, which is here constantly confused with education, is well known. Instruction is not education. To make mental cripples of youth is a crime. Did not Christ warn us, St. Matthew's 27:6? Oh, excuse me, I don't think that's 27:6. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believes in me, who is truth itself, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depths of the sea. The incurable imbeciles, according to Urban Coher, are those who pretend not to know what is this world government which, according to Honorable Marshall, is making abortive all efforts of peace lovers. No other book tells the whole truth. Nobody speaks about the leaders of the hidden hand, the Rothschilds, the real world assassins of the peoples, as the Foreign Affairs of Oxford called them, and the autocrats of the world, and how they misrule the world. Books written about them were brought up at once and disappeared, like The Rothschilds by Mr. John Reeves, published by McClurg in Chicago, Les Rothschilds by Demmeke, etc. These books constitute a rarity, though they do not describe the political phase in the life of this sinister and fatal family, to which could be attributed at least one half of all the bloodshed and calamities that have befallen the white race since 1770. The excellent, the international Jew, is the clever and undeniable exposure of the Jewish power, but only as exercised here, perhaps because the Rothschilds and their invisible government are in Europe, except a score of members who are here. These 4 books, so masterfully written, do not explain their satanic work of the last 150 years, a role absolutely unequaled by contemporary rulers, but hidden with the utmost care. The French Revolution, World Revolution, the Plot Against Civilization, and the Secret Societies by the most talented Miss Nesta Webster of London, the best historian of today, are so important that I will refer to them later. No student of history, no politician or preacher, especially no woman, should miss reading them. Among the thousands of historians, Miss Webster stands as a colossus endowed with a rare erudition that encouraged the cause of world unrest by the Morning Post in London is tremendously useful, but it does not mention the Rothschilds. The Secrets of the Rothschilds by Miss Mary Hobart has also disappeared, though there is nothing about them in it. But the press controlled by them prevents the real facts from being known, as Mr. W.J. Bryan rightfully said. The professors, clergymen, politicians, and writers would die of fear rather than speak the truth. Furthermore, 99% of Americans do not know the ABC of foreign politics, and much less they understand its so-called mysteries, which puzzled even the greatest statesmen since, according even to Mr. Lothrop Stoddard, something happened which he does not explain, which endangered our 1900-old Christian civilization. What is the result of such mass lying? 96% of the people of the United States are below the accepted standard of intelligence, and only 4 million are above the standard. President of the Southern California University, Dr. Kine McCow, Chicago D-News, July 30th, 1923. By the Dearborn Independent. 4 volumes, 25 cents each. Transform politicians into statesmen. What is the result of constantly hiding the truth? Never has Congress been at lower ebb than it is today, confessed Secretary of War Mr. Weeks, the Chicago Tribune of June 16, 1922. And Senator Borah has no better opinion, saying, "It is just plain man failure on the part of the politicians to run their jobs." Collier's Magazine, November 1922. American foreign policy has come to its lowest ebb since the founding of the Republic. We come to complete stagnation due to incapacity for individual action and to terror of concerted action. No such lowest state of American courage has ever been recorded in American history. The editor of the Daily News of Chicago on December 6, 1922. To step blithely into the deep torrent, equipped only with moral truisms and easy formulae, without a clear knowledge of the deep-seated forces which control policy, is to invite costly commitments and unexpected sacrifices. The editor of the Chicago Tribune, September 9, 1922. Our statesmen are children compared with their European. A foremost place in world affairs is offered us time and again. It is thrown into our lap, and through our plain stupidity we reject it. Chicago Herald, July 22, 1923. Roy K. Moulton wrote, The New York American, May 24, 1924. So far as diplomacy of our country just now is concerned, there is nothing that matter with it for the reason that we don't seem to have any. We do not grow diplomats. We raise politicians. The lack of sharp diplomats is one phase of our national life which makes us shudder at the mere thought of any diplomatic passage or entanglement with Europe. We should be at a tremendous disadvantage in any conference or in any world court. We are a nation in its infancy. Mr. Wilson confessed his blindness in world affairs thus: diplomacy works always in the dense thicket of ancient feuds, rooted, entangled, and entwined. It is difficult to see the path. It is not possible to see the light of day. I did not realize it until the peace conferences. Wilson was not quite enough of a statesman to win out against Allied diplomacy at Paris. Ambassador Bernstorff, Chicago Tribune, February 5, 1924. America has no foreign politics. The world work. America knows nothing about what is going on overseas. Mr. Shaw Desmond, the Chicago Daily News, March 1, 1924. The United States is just about 40 years behind the times in political thinking compared with the rest of the world. Oswald Garrison, Villard, editor of the National Chicago Tribune, March 8, 1924. Your European superior knowledge will take the initiative. General Dawes. A blunder in politics is worse than a crime. Talleyrand. If we blunder, there may be no America tomorrow. Copeland. League will never prevent wars. Major A. Hamilton Gibbs in 1925. America is in that diplomatic position where war may come to it through slogans such as the war to end all wars, and making the world safe for democracy. Governor John J. Blaine on October 20, 1923. Yes, the sons of the devil will invent any such slogan. The United States is passing through a critical period in its history. General H. C. Hell, commanding the 6th Area Corps of Chicago. The Soviet ambassador to China, Karakan, is a dangerous and mischievous advisor. Ambassador Sherman, New York Times, March 6, 1925. All this is most dangerous. Why not create a school of foreign affairs and teach my science of political foresight? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Women could prevent wars. 9 national women's organizations, with a membership of about 5 million women, held a conference on the cause and cure of war in Washington in January 1925. The meeting was rendered abortive before it began because of the failure of the president to state the real causes of war. None of the members had the courage to proclaim that, first of all, in order to prevent wars, we ought to point out who is staging them. This was foretold by Christ himself. Ye Jews will do devil's lust of murder. As war is but a legalized mass murder, he clearly stated, ye Jews will organize wars and revolts. Those who took part in the above conference thought that they knew better than Christ, and even insulted him by inviting an arch-enemy of the Prince of Peace, Rabbi Stephen S. Wise, to explain how to avert wars. To avert wars is just the reverse of what his Talmud is dictating to him. He proved to be more honest and clever than his audience, and openly confessed that being a Jew he was in trouble to solve the problem. What could a rabbi answer to the imbeciles or hypocrites who invited him to devitalize his own Talmud? Corral the 50 wealthiest Jews and there will be no wars, Henry Ford. Wars are the Jews' harvest, Werner Zombart, a Jewish professor. How right is a brilliant Field Marshal, Lord Haig, in saying, the gospel of Christ is the world's only social hope and the sole promise of world peace. It is a crusade to which I urge you, a crusade not having for its object the redemption of a single city, however holy, but a freeing of the whole world from the devastating scourge of war. New York Times, February 22nd, 1925. The above conference proved once more how true are the following opinions about women. American women delude themselves when they think they are advanced politically. They are behind the women of many other countries. Miss Alice Paul, Vice President of the National Women's Party, Chicago Tribune, November 10, 1922. The trouble with you women is you are too ignorant. Unless you get out of this ignorance, you are a positive menace. The British Ambassador, Sir A. Geddes, Chicago Tribune, May 1st, 1922. The almost total eclipse of the United States delegates, women, under the shadow of the oratory of the foreign women was astonishing. Miss O. D. Oliphant, National President of the American Legion Auxiliary, May 13, 1925. The want of faith in our Savior among the women is one of the potent causes of the wavering morals of today. Recalls the following: a newspaper commenting the data of a statistician that there are 536 million Christians exclaimed, "We are depressed when we wonder where they live." Many are ashamed to acknowledge Christ. England and the United States, in spite of their self-confidence and their ability to produce wealth, are in the greatest moral danger of all. Miss Christabel Pankhurst. The scorning of Christ is conducive to catastrophe. Watch and expose the work of Satanists. A famous Russian, A. Krylov, has told the story of a country man who traveled to the capital to see the Zoological Museum. Returning home, he narrated how he had been roaming in the museum and had seen all there, even to the insects. "And how does the elephant look?" asked the child. "I did not notice the elephant," answered the peasant. This fable reminds me of all historians and authors who have written about the French Revolution and Napoleon I, and on other periods of history. Thus there appeared a book, The French Revolution, by Mr. G. P. Gooch, Helps for Students of History. Mr. Gooch and the 100 authors on the French Revolution, whom he quotes, have studied all the insects which brought it about, except the chief one, the hidden hand. This elephant of the political zoo, or more aptly, this tiger, is responsible for the French and for all the other revolutionary wars, and for all the world's unrest and bloodshed. These authors and professors describe the birds, sheep, and goats of the political zoo, and say to their pupils, "Now you know all the animals, you can go into the jungles and hunt, but beware of the goats and the monkeys. They are dangerous and may even upset you." Such is the political preparation in the schools. It can produce but incurable imbeciles. As Miss Gooch's book is published by the Society for Promoting Christian Knowledge, one assumes that the author is a Christian. Satan offered Christ all the kingdoms of the world, and having failed to thus destroy Christ, Satan inspired the Jews to kill him, while all the people shouted, "His blood be on us and our children." And 300 of the worst Jews, Satanists, composed the hidden hand. The invisible Judeo-Mongol world government is headed since 1770 by the dynasty of Rothschild. I shall throw complete light on their demonically sinister activities. Such revelations, for unknown and independent reasons, have always been interpreted through an order to foresee. To govern means to foresee. Otherwise, without foreseeing, one could not successfully govern. Everybody ought to watch these Jews. Why it is kept secret. I have glimpsed into hell, Russia. These Jews are in control. Lenin spent his last days, I think it means Lenin, spent his last days crawling on all fours round the room and shouting repeatedly, "God save Russia and kill the Jews." 90% of the important posts in the Soviet government are held by Jews. Sir Percival Phillips, Daily Mail, London. The Jews are the cause of nearly all the ills of the world. The Kaiser. The benefits brought to Russian people by Bolshevism exist only on paper painted in glowing colors by Bolshevist propaganda. Emma Goldman, a communist Jewess. Prove that Christ was the greatest statesman. The Jews bequeath to their posterity the same hatred and destruction of the heritage of Christ. The Jew is the Antichrist. was in St. John's day, is today, and will be. Reverend Marion Smith, a Jew. The strongest supporters of Judaism cannot deny that Judaism is anti-Christian. The Jewish World, March 15, 1924. The Jews detest the spirit of the nations in the midst of the valley which they live. A Jew, Bernard Lazare. Anti-Semitism. Well, how does it happen that students of history are invited to study the work and influence of the church, and yet are told nothing about the works of Christ's foes, the Jews, the heirs of Satan? Why this constant conspiracy of silence? They have kept their government and their executives, the hidden hand, secret, with the object of ruling all the kingdoms offered by Satan to Christ, and which the former would grant to the Jews should they accomplish the destruction of everything owned by Christ. Their program is exposed in the protocols. Everybody must take into consideration what is being done, not only by the church and the state, but also by the anti-church or the executors of Satan's will, the Jews. Note also the fact that they have always brought as their sacrifice not one scapegoat, but two, one for Jehovah and one for Satan. Whosoever forgets or omits the Jewish question, be it through ignorance or fear, is unfit to be a preacher, teacher, or official. Books in which, because of ignorance, cowardice, or bribery, or mouth-watering, the chief Satanists, the Rothschilds, are not mentioned are worse than useless. They are even harmful by reason of the light which they fail to kindle. Numberless authors like Mr. F. R. Nielsen in his How Diplomats Make War, which is not true, Dr. P. S. Reinsch in his Secret Diplomacy, the diplomacy which he describes as not secret, but he does not speak about that which really is secret, and Professor J. Holland Rose of Cambridge University have written about the origin of the war. They expose 99 causes of the war, except the main one, the lust of murder of the Jews. A war is a legalized murder. Who is the chief murderer? Christ said the devil, Satan, is a murderer, and the Jews will do his lust and murdering and lying. Simple, but how infinitely true. And history proves this with appalling accuracy. My readers will pardon repetitions. They occur because the above words seem to be entirely unknown to the nation. It looks as if I was the only man who proved in my Gentiles review that a pagan could not be a statesman. No man, unless he is drunk with optimism, can deny that the world is very sick, and it may be sickness unto its death. Sir P. H. Gibbs. The conscience must be given to history. The famous Al Lamartine, dictator of France in 1848, in his essay on the manner of writing history for the people, said, if you desire to mold the opinion of the masses, to rescue them from the immoral doctrine of success, do what has never been done before. Give a conscience to history. By treating your theme in this spirit, you will win less popularity. You will not fire the passions or the imagination of the people, but you will render 1,000 times better service to their cause, their interest, and their reason. Teach them by facts, by events, by the hidden meaning of those great historic dramas of which we perceive only the scenery and the actors, while their plots are contrived by a hidden hand, to know, to judge, and to moderate themselves. Make them capable of distinguishing those who serve them from those who mislead them, those who dazzle from those who enlighten them. Point to every great man and great event and say, weigh them for yourselves, not with the false weights of your transient passions, your prejudices, your anger, your national vanity, your narrow patriotism, but by the universal conscience of the human race, and by the utility of each act for the cause of civilization. Even before I had read the above lines, I had already tried to give a conscience to history and to rescue the readers from the immoral doctrine of success, by proving to them that the marvelous success of the so-called great men, in reality great mischief makers, were due to the support of Satan's delegates. I explained the hidden meaning of those great historic dramas, like the dethronement of the three well-meaning ancient dynasties recently upset because 100 years ago in 1815, they had the courage to sign the Holy Alliance, i.e. a league of nations with Christ as the supreme leader. Suppress a truth of which we have good evidence, and like the stone of stumbling and rock of offense, it may fall upon us and by and grind us to powder. Henry W. Rankin. The most unpleasant truth in the long run is the far safer traveling companion than the most agreeable falsehood. Emerson. The truth about demons, not ignorance, shall make us free from their subtle deceptions, as all truth makes free. We are in a sense free in proportion to the truth which we apprehend. Evangelist Arthur C. Zepp. The truth in history and about the demons composing the hidden hand was suppressed. What are the results of such crime? The famous defender of criminals, Clarence Darrow, stated, an intelligence test in the army of 2 million men between 20 and 30 shows that our intelligent men in America, 70% run below 14 years of age. That is better than the average because there are left out of that all the real imbeciles that have been discovered, all the insane, all the criminals that have been captured, all of those have been left out, and 70% average 14 years of age or less. Only 4% up to an ordinary standard in the most self-satisfied country on earth. Only 1% go to college. Present-day young people are as ignorant of the Bible as the heathen. Reverend Herbert L. Willett, professor of the University of Chicago. Because the Jew-controlled press will try to kill a truthful history through silence, as it will this very volume. Lamartine is advising the reverse of what Lionel Rothschild, Sidonia, and Coningsby taught Disraeli. Cure cowardice, imbecility, and treachery. Think of the father of a girl 5 years old who during a fire in his house would discuss the danger of her being married to a crook someday. Yet the New Age magazine, the Protestant, etc. are thus distracting our attention from the world's fire, which is the Judeo-Mongol satanic Bolshevism. Thus, the Protestant of June 22nd assures us, 1922, a rapidly growing number of men are fully alert to the peril of Romanism and are helping to arouse the people to a realization of that peril in order that it may be resisted. If there exists a danger of Romanism, it is like the famous poison coffee. It takes a century to feel its harmful effects. If Romanism were permitted to do what it likes in America, which is not easy to conceive, in 100 years perhaps there might be some change. But to accomplish it would be necessary to put both this country and Romanism under a glass cover beyond the influence of all satanic forces. But this country already is watched by the Judeo-Mongol hidden hand, which is working to blow up the Vatican and also to smash the United States. Romanism is itself a terrific danger, menaced by the same fierce wholesale assault of Satan's agencies upon all churches. Only very ignorant people or crooks, hired by the hidden hand in order to split the Christians still more, pay no attention to the universal attack of the devil's sons upon Christ. Thus, since 1917, when the Jews Kerensky, Kurbis Adler, and later on Leba Bronstein, Trotsky, seized power in Russia, they did all in their power to disunite, split, and degrade her church. A Jew, Reverend Hecker, went to Russia and organized the so-called Living Church. He belonged to the YMCA of New York. A Jew, Mustafa Kemal, dictator of Turkey, cast out all the Ostromenical patriarch from Constantinople, where the patriarchs of Eastern Catholic Church have lived for 1,000 years. A Jew, Masaryk, president for life, though this is against the law, is preparing to cast out from Prague the envoy of the Pope. A Jew, H. Gluck, ejected the Russian Metropolitan of America. The Jews in France, headed by E. Rothschild V, are urging their French Freemasonry to bring about the severance of all diplomatic relations with the Holy Father against the will of nearly an entire French nation. The hidden hand is not touched by the dove talk of General Dawes and all the pacifists. It wishes to do the lust of murder. A professional Catholic clash is the hidden hand's chief. A Protestant Catholic clash is the hidden hand's chief aim. Do the reverse of what your foe wishes. Napoleon, a genius. Only the reconciliation and cooperation of all the Christians could prevent the otherwise imminent catastrophe. The Catholic Church and the Jews. Thus, the anti-Vatican move is doubly profitable to the hidden hand. It lowers the church, and it can also provoke a civil war everywhere. As the brilliant General Castellano warns us, and a fratricidal war would mean a new attack by Germany, which is again ready and again inflamed by her sons of the devil, which are the relations between the great Christian church called Roman Catholic and the Jews. At the last secretary consistory, the Holy Father called upon all right-thinking men to combine in fighting the threat of socialism and communism. His words are considered the severest condemnation of a foreign government. The New York Times, December 19, 1924. But what is Bolshevism? Is it the Jewish mask of communism? Bolshevism is militant Judaism, the extermination of the white races and the substitution of Asiatic parasites for the Aryans. It is the work of Jewish assassins for the purpose of causing a new domination of the world by a criminal sect, Sir Patrick Hamilton states. The communists are Jews, and Russia is being entirely administered by them. There are in every government office, bureau, and newspaper. They are driving out the Russians and are responsible for the anti-Semitic feeling which is increasing. Miss Claire Sheridan, friend of Bronstein Tarosky, in the New York World, December 15, 1923. I am prepared to prove that Bolshevism, which is merely a modern word for Judaism, the vicious manipulations of foreign exchanges, and the general world unrest prevailing today may be summed up in two words, namely Jew finance. President of the best English patriotic society, the Britons, the famous patriot H. Beamish authored The Jews who, thundering at Bolshevism, the Roman pontiffs hits Judaism. Rome is the greatest enemy of Bolshevism, pointed out a Jew, Sir Alfred Mann, in his own English Review, in an article, The World Battle of the Jews, in which the Christians are shown between the Jewish anvil capitalism and the Jewish hammer Bolshevism. Thus, Rome was designated to the Jews as the chief target at which they must strike. Mr. York Steiner, a known Zionist, quotes the words of the Cardinal Mary de Val, then Papal Secretary of State. We meet the Jews in every camp, hostile to us Christians. As soon as a dirty book appears or a journal which shocks us, we find behind them the Jew. Ritual crime, Jewish treason at La Renaissance Francaise. The Jews of Apfelbaum, Zinoviev, Rosenfeld, Kamenev, etc., the czars of Russia, would throw all the Russian troops into Central Europe in order to stage the bloody world revolution, as Frunze confessed, the New York World, February 21st, 1925. Should some new catastrophe overtake Europe, the United States would be irresistibly drawn into the maelstrom era. The conflict ended. Senator Oscar Underwood. In his Jews in Russia at the Britons, London, Mr. Victor E. Marsden, correspondent of the Morning Post, published the names of all the 545 Soviet commissaires. Of them, 447 are Jews, 34 Lets, and 30 Russians, etc. But even many of these Lets and Russians are in reality Jews are married to Jewesses. Will Europe fall into the hands of Jews? In his book, The Dawn of Day, Nietzsche wrote, one of the spectacles which the next century, the 20th, will invite us to witness is the decision regarding the fate of the Jews. It is quite obvious now that they have cast their die and crossed the Rubicon. The only thing that remains for them is either to become masters of Europe or to lose Europe as they once centuries ago lost. Egypt, where they were confronted by similar alternatives, Europe may someday fall into their hands like ripe fruit if they do not clutch it too eagerly. The British Guardian of London rightly states, now this is exactly what the Jews have done, and so have saved Europe. They have been too eager. The first clutch was the Boer War, which put the world's chief gold supply into their hands. The Great War was their next eager clutch. The Bolshevizing of Russia followed. Then came the clutch at Hungary under Bela Kun, which lasted 100 days. Then the clutch at Bavaria, which lasted 3 weeks. By this time, the world is beginning to awake that the fiat of the white race has gone forth. The Jews must lose Europe as centuries ago they lost Egypt. They are on track to Zion once more. They are Zionists this time as they were when they trekked out of Egypt. When one has read the predictions of Dostoevsky, of Nietzsche, of the Jew J. Lemon, who 30 years before this war and Bolshevism exposed the plan of hell and foretold the funeral lines, and the recent confessions of the prominent Jews, Dr. Oscar Levy of London and René Groos of Paris, now how absurd, if not criminal, seems all those naive or hypocritical persons who, despite all the above, are willing to deceive their leaders into the belief that the above funeral lines happen just through the inability of the diplomats, or because of the corruption of the Tsar's regime, as Lloyd George, Bernard Shaw, Guglielmo Ferrero, and other lickers of the Jewish boots are falsely saying. No, all that has happened since 1914 and is still happening is the logical consequence of a deliberate Judeo-Mongol satanic plan of hell traced out in the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. All the efforts of the Jews and of their valets to prove the forgery of the protocols fall flat. We daily see them realize. In his clever book, The Truth About the Protocols of Zion, a brilliant Slav author, Gregory Bosanik, pictured the symbolical satanic serpent having surrounded all Europe, with his head in Odessa looking to the south on Constantinople. The ecumenic patriarch has been blown out from Constantinople after a sojourn of 1,000 years. This move of the satanic serpent succeeded not because Turkey is ruled by Ottomans, but because a Jewel Mongol, Mustafa Kemal, is its virtual dictator. Alas, Satan is not done with Europe. Mr. Lloyd George. America's prosperity hinges on Europe. Secretary Herbert Hoover. Note that these lines are from the pen of Dr. John H. Clark, a great scientist known as the most successful homeopath on earth. In the Bolshevists in ancient history by Apianus at the Bretons, London, it is proved that the Jews staged Bolshevism in Egypt and therefore were expelled. Save Christian Aryan civilization. The First World War brought to Edward Rothschild and to his 300 Jews composing the Hidden Hand more than $100 billion. Why not repeat it? They are the executors of Satan. The First World War caused 40 million casualties, and the Jewish Revolution in Russia cost her some 30 million lives. This only increased the lust of murder of the Satanists, and now they are staging a revolt in the United States, if possible a new civil war, inflaming Protestants who are the employers against the Catholics, 95% of whom are hard workers, and then cause America to be attacked by a whole foreign circular coalition. My object is to explain what has really happened in history. All that will happen if we still continue to be frightened by a band of criminals who should be arrested, tried, and made harmless to rid the world of this unspeakably shameful fear which paralyzes our defenses and which will cause our destruction. I shall reveal all the mysteries, show the way to become a statesman, expose the plan of our satanic foes, and the way to save this wonderful country, Christendom, and the white race. My theory of the satanic forces gives the key to all the most complicated problems, as every second counts if Christendom is to be saved. I did not waste time in trying to improve my foreign style of English. My readers will understand the gravity of today's situation and will magnanimously forgive this. Many deficiencies of this book could have been remedied, but for the lack of civic courage and patriotism of American publishers, and my own depleted resources, which compelled me to abridge the material and arrange it not in the best but in the most economical manner, and to have it printed by foreigners like myself, hence its telegraphic, often stilted style and lack of proper sequence. My prime purpose has been to corral the facts and bring them before the public as speedily as possible. I expect the Hidden Hand to seek my life for disclosing their diabolical deeds and sinister plans, but we cannot attempt to save the world and repose in a realm of safety, aside from the fact that nobility and rank impose grave obligations upon my conscious Christian duty and racial concern impel me to publish this book. Demand that you read it and urge others to do likewise. The world will never again seem the same to you. H. Vinkinson. Respectfully, the author.